All right, what is going on, you guys? My name is Daniel, for those of you coming on the replay, and this is going to be a video where I go and edit all of the photos that I took on a little photo walk around downtown Helsinki using a Canon RP and then this lens right here, the 50mm 1.8 that the representatives over at Canon Finland were gracious enough to give out on loan to me. So let's jump into all of this and take a look at what I found and what I've been looking at with these photos. I did a little bit of brief over and pulled out the ones that were total trash, but here are the photos that I think kind of show the capabilities of the Canon lens for the 50mm that just came out. For starters, it's kind of a plastic looking which is to be expected since it's a low end, but it's kind of plasticky, but it's way better than the last one that they had for the EF, which was almost like it had been folded plastic. This actually looks like a matte plastic, and it is pretty much the same size. Hey, what's going on, everybody that just showed up? And it's about the same size as what the adapter is, so it's pretty much the smallest lens that you can throw on the front of the Canon any of the R series. And we're going to be going over these photos here to see how it looks. There are some photos that I took from downtown Helsinki today on my way around there trying to pick up a gift for someone. And so here's the first one that I took. It is of a nice little auto shop. I don't think I've leveled it, but the first thing that I noticed right off the bat is that these corners are a little bit dark on each one of them, which is kind of unexpected. And for those of you that are in the chat or watching, let me know if the audio quality is good enough and if you can hear me all right. So these corners right here, they're just darker, even though the building was definitely not darker in those sections. And even over here on the road, as you can see, it's much darker right here than it is over here, and much darker here than it is here. So something I was kind of a little bit surprised about to see right off the bat. I used to have problems with this with the older EF 1.8 50mm, but that's usually because I had a hood scoop and it would be showing that. But this one, no hood scoop, and it still has this little bit of dark in the corners. Probably something you won't notice much unless you're taking a picture of something exactly like this. And then once again, the textures and everything turned out pretty good. And this is incredibly zoomed in as well. So we are going to go over to the next photo, and for those of you guys watching, let me know where in the world you are watching from. And this one is in a little Christmas market. It's a little bit cool of a photo. Let's warm it up a little bit just so that my eyes don't feel terrible. Yeah, that's better. And so this was shot at and this other photo was shot at 1.8. So this is wide open. That's where it's going to be a little bit softer on this. And hey, welcome everybody that just showed up to the live stream. This is the 50mm that we're going over, the new one, the 1.8 RF that Canon Finland was so gracious to allow me to review and on loan, along with a whole bunch of other gear which will be showing up in the channel very shortly. But first thing was kind of is a little bit of this vignetting on the lens. A little bit disappointed with that, but it's not a huge deal. It's not like it's coming all the way over there. And then this one was shot at 1.8 over there. And let's see here, where's the best focus point? It's probably going to be right there. And this is incredibly zoomed in, very, very small amount of chromatic aberration. And that was one of the big things that I noticed as I was watching everything, or as I was taking these photos, is I didn't feel like there was very much chromatic aberration in comparison to the other lenses. And I think this is due to the RF lens quality and the fact that because they are mounted so much closer to the actual lens, or the lens is mounted closer to the actual sensor. And so that helps line up the light, so it reduces the chromatic aberration there. Unlike if you had the original Nifty 50, that would be very far away from the lens, and even if you had the adapter, it's still just holding it far away from the lens. All right, let's go in here and see about the texture. That's not the focus point, and this is about as wide as it gets, so it's a little bit soft even around where it is focused. This next image, I think, nope, this is another wide open, but it's this one right here where much more of it, this was shot at f8, which is about where it's going to be the sharpest for this 50mm. And so you can come in here and take a look. I mean, that's pretty darn sharp. It's at ISO 3200. Unfortunately, it is going to be a little bit grainy. We have not had very much light here in Helsinki at all, and it's been super overcast, and it's not that bright here in the Nordics during this time of year. And you can zoom into these and see a little bit of how the lens flare works. I have another image that I took that will show this much better, but that's obviously super zoomed in. Definitely enjoyed the bokeh even at this f8. Of course, you're going to get more bokeh when you're closer to the subject, but I do enjoy even this has some really good texture, and I don't think this is definitely sharp enough for what I would expect out of this lens. This is even with more of the bokeh and even closer to the subject, and as you can see, it is a little bit soft there when it is full wide out at the aperture 1.8. So a little bit unfortunate there. I was hoping that maybe it would be a little bit sharper, but this is starting to be the more consumer level lens, and this is just a photo that's pretty straightforward out of going down to the metro. Let's just adjust this, and as you can see, all the lines and everything look all right on here. I have another one that will probably show this a lot better, but all the lines come up pretty well. I don't really want to go over these two photos. And then back over here, as you can see, let's see if I can go up here. Right there, zooms in, and so it does pretty well with all of these lines and kind of that rolling shutter look that you get when you get the lines starting to go really close together. So not a big deal, and I think that one shows that it deals with that pretty darn well. The next one, this is kind of just a photo of me up there at the top of the mall. Not the greatest. I will do another completely separate video about how this lens works with portraits. I do think it's a little bit soft. Like I said, this is at the 1.8, but it does have the wonderful bokeh. I will probably personally be shooting, if I was to own this lens, I would be shooting at probably the aperture of f2 to f2 point, what is it, 5.7? I forget which one it comes next. But in that zone, just to get it a little bit sharper. So if you come in here and look at the eye, it's pretty sharp, but only this little itty bitty bit, and then everything else kind of gets very, very soft around here. But this is obviously not one of the best photos that you're ever going to see. This is just me walking around and then having to take a photo of myself. And then coming in here really close, getting a little bit of the purple and the greens in there, but that's marginal. The chromatic aberration on lenses that are similar on the low end can be much, much greater sometimes. And here's the one where I wanted to show you the flares coming out, so it deals with that all right. It deals with it pretty well. And then this one has two of them. I say this one probably shows it a lot better. That's what the flares are going to look like when they come out. And it's pretty harsh. And another flare. Then just some architecture from around Helsinki. What is this, at f4? And I'd say that it keeps pretty much most of it as integrally accurate as possible. I do think it's a lot sharper than the old 50mm 1.8 EF, which is, hopefully for the price, definitely what you'd expect. And then this one, I was just trying to see how much chromatic aberration we could get out of it. Just a very slight amount throughout all of this, almost none. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing on this lens. I still have to do a lot more with this lens to see exactly what it's capable of, and I really don't enjoy doing studio, like this pixel peeping stuff, because the photos that I'm taking and the photos that all of us are taking live out in the real world rather than in the pixel peeping world. So I'm going to put it through a lot more paces, but these are some of the first photos that I've been able to do with it. Let's get in the foreground, blown out, everything, and then coming around here to the edges of it. The overall lack of chromatic aberration is nice, because even with some of my cheaper lenses that I used to have, that was always a huge deal, suddenly having to drop all the purples out of it or all of the greens. So if you had a tree in it and there's a whole bunch of chromatic aberration going around on the corners, that would end up hurting the image quality. But this one is at f8. Still some decent bokeh at f8 going on there. And where did the other one go for it? Right here. And even more here. So this is definitely, I think, worth the price that you pay for it. And then here is the Helsinki main railway station. The overcast, overexposed skies. I don't know why it was shot at 32, but it was. And you can see all these little lights. They do a really good job here during the Christmas time. They have these trees that they set up, and then they have some of them that are pretty much upside down trees that are supposed to be, what are they? They're supposed to be champagne glasses for New Year's, but they do it both. And then somebody, I guess it's actually probably the railway station here, put the masks on the Atlas guys. And the next shot, this was shot through one of the trams that goes through downtown Helsinki. And I've edited this one a little bit so that you can see through it. But overall, I think it did a really crisp, nice job, even though it's shooting through the moving object. And it still came out quite sharp. This is f8. And then, of course, the grain is mostly because this is a shot at 3200. But very surprised at how good that came out, this specific photo. And then we have these, once again, the railway station, like I said, the Atlas guys. And then right here, this one wasn't quite so great. I don't even know. I think the focus point was about here. But it did an all right job there. Best photos for the day walking through is probably definitely this one that we just went over, and I really enjoyed the flares that came out of the 50mm. So if you're thinking about picking this up, the biggest considerations that I see the very first time I'm taking these back is going to be the vignetting that happens ever so slightly in these corners, as you can see here. And then obviously it's a lower end piece of glass, so you are going to have some of that chromatic aberration. And then the flares is another one. But I don't think these are too bad for the price point that the lens is. It deals with it quite well. And then just it being soft at full open aperture at 1.8. I think these are the top considerations if you're looking into purchasing this lens. I'll probably put a link to pick this lens up if you're thinking about it down in the description below. Hey, thank you so much for watching. My name is Daniel, and you all take care.